Live. We're back again, and I don't know if you just heard, I made a little haha about you being out there who didn't hear me or maybe heard me if you're in your pajamas already. Just don't fall asleep. 2 more classes until we go on break, and we're finished with this part 1. Part 2 starts on January 8th, and will go till February 12th. Mahalo for those of you who sent suggestions on what we might do for another 6 weeks. Keep them coming in. If you think of something over the course of the next few weeks, what would you like to have for another 6 weeks? For 6 weeks, we can take a look at that, 6, 12 weeks, anything like that. So welcome again. So today, excuse me, today we're moving on to Hāmākuapoko. Hāmākuapoko is not H-poko. Hāmākuapoko is Hāmākuapoko. I don't know where H-poko is. I know where Hāmākuapoko is. So here at this class, we will always say Hāmākuapoko, and that's going to be the good thing for us to do. You know, if we have friends and family that say any of the words that I just went, don't say that anymore. Be gentle with your, oh no, it's not H-poko, it's Hāmākuapoko. Not go, you're wrong, you know, just gentle. Hāmākuapoko. So that's the area that we're going to be in. And if you look at this slide, it's poko. Yeah, poko means short or small. And so it's a little sliver of a thing that is next to Hāmākualoa, which is larger. And it is bound by what is known as Kailua Gulch. I bet you never even know we had a Kailua Gulch. Kailua Gulch, which is, you know, remember when we talked about Wailuku kind of ended where Stable Road is and where the end of the runway is, Sprecklesville, in that area? Well, that's where this starts, at Kailua Gulch, which is right, those of us who live here on Maui, we know Baby Beach, maybe. Yeah, so it's right around in the same area. So Makai, it is bound by Kailua Gulch, right outside of Paia, and all the way down to just before Maliko. And in the map that we are using, it starts just to the Kahului side of Maliko and starts going up, but then it joins up to Maliko Gulch, and it follows Maliko Gulch back up Mauka. These are the more well-known borders. Okay, so I'm going to pop back a little bit so that you can see how it comes up and then it jiggles over a little bit and then it goes back down. That's what this is. It goes up, it jiggles over a little bit, and then it goes back down. So the borders of this is those 2 arrows point to the Makai borders just before Maliko and Kailua. And when you go up Mauka, the I don't know if you can see that, but the one that is more to the right is Pu'ukakae. The circle more towards your right is Pu'ukakae, and the circle more towards your left is Pu'ualaya. So those are the boundaries of this Hāmākuapoko. From Makai, from Kailua Gulch to just about Maliko, and then up from there to Pu'ukakae, which is more Mauka, and then over a little bit lower to Pu'ualaya. So I'm going to go back again so you can see how that jiggle is. Yeah, right in here is how that comes up and then it moves over and then it goes back down. Okay. It includes Paia, Ku'au, Ho'okipa Beach Park, Hali'imaile, Makawao, Kokomo, Pi'iholo, and Olinda. So while it is a small, looks like on the map, a small little portion, Hāmākuapoko, a short, small portion, it encompasses a lot of the place names that we are very familiar with, and many of us perhaps live in. And so it is probably considered country. You know, we call it up country, but it's kind of middle country, and then up country. But it is that small little sliver that all of these towns and then all of these people live in this area. Many mele were written for this place, and I find that very interesting because it's basically country. Yeah, I find it very interesting is that these place names, oh shucks, these place names, these place names are in a lot of mele. Oh, I wonder if somebody's telling me that something's not working right. Hang on, just in case. No. You know, when it's family, I check. Sorry. So these place names are located in many mele, chant as well as modern day mele, which tells me that while we may look at it as very sparsely populated, perhaps, not so with what was done perhaps in that area. And what we see when it comes to traditional chants is that our ali'i traveled here. When they came to Maui, they came to these areas. And so mele were written as they visited places like this. So I find that very interesting that this Hāmākuapoko is a kind of a small land space, but the names within this land space is well known in mele and in story. Kaua pehi hala o Hāmākua, the rain of Hāmākua that pelts the pandanus fruits. It refers to the rain of Hāmākua Maui. So, do you think this particular rain is heavy or light? What do you think? Heavy. Why? Pelts, because pehi. The word pehi means to hit. And when you pehi something, it's like you punch something or you hit something hard. So that word itself, this pehi, tells us it's coming down hard. Plus, if it talks about in this particular translation that you can hear it hit the fruit, not the leaves, because you can hear hala leaves rustle in all kinds of rain, but to hear the rain hit the puhala, the hala ball, then the fruit, then the baga is coming down. Anybody heard what rain sounds like on hala leaves? Very beautiful, very beautiful. It's like when rain falls on coconut leaves. You know, it has that very lovely sound. But this one tells us that it's coming down hard. Now, I put these particular pictures up because, and I'll talk a little bit about the whole idea of hala. For the term hala also means to pass or to die. So for some people, to receive halalei is not a good thing because something will pass or something will die. Not so much in our ohana. In our ohana, we always like halalei. And it has been a skill that has been passed down in our family for generations. And so it's a skill I also taught my halau to do in order to make lei like the one you see here with the niho. Like in all lei making, not everybody has the right hand for everything. So, but the reason I also put this down is if you look at the picture on your left, it is a pure green puhala. Now the one that is round, the seeds, is actually female. Yeah, it's the female. So this is the female. The male is the hinano, which is the white, and then it turns to kind of a creamy color. It's called a brack. Yeah, it's a long thing that comes into the leaf. But this is the female. And in order to have puhala like that, there has to be a hinano nearby. In order for this to happen, a hinano has to be nearby, because that's how they pollinate, yeah? And then they make the challah balls. Now, when you are looking, and this is just a little thing. When you are looking for the right challah ball to take off of the tree in order to make your lei, do not look like the one in the middle. The one in the middle, when you look up at the tree and you see it's orange, is too ripe. If you take that down and you open it up, it's soft inside, and it won't make good lei. It won't make good lei. So if you look up and, oh, look, it's all ripe. Yeah, pass that one by, because you won't be able to make lei with this. It's too soft. The next picture, the one that's half open there, that is the look of the challah that you want to have. So when you're looking at a ball from the ground, you only can see a very little bit of color. You cannot see plenty color. It's only a very little. And most of the time, what you see is that the seeds have opened. They've separated, because you're watching the tree, right, over time. So when it's tight like this, it's not ready. Then you'll see the seeds start to open. That's when you know it's getting near the time for you to pick it. And then when you see just a little bit of color, that's when you pick it, because it'll be like that picture there with the green on the outside and the color in the middle. And the reason that's important is because in order to make the lei that is on the far right, it would come from seeds like that. Yeah, you'll see it's got a little bit darker tinge on the points, which is the green, and then it changes color into the middle. It's hard to make like that. Not hard to make when you do the blunt cut. Yeah, you just go get your pakang, pakang, and you got the blunt cut. But when you need to cut niho, there are a couple different ways. Some people, my favorite way is I get a thin blade pocket knife. And then it's about this long, it ends up about this long, and it's thin blade, and you cut like that off of the pocket knife. Some people like to use the, what's the box cutter thing? X-Acto knife. Some people like to use the X-Acto knife in order to cut the niho, the points off. I use a pocket knife. But so because challah also means to pass, in our ohana, we often, I don't say always because it depends if the challah is ready or not, we often give challah lei for New Year's, for graduations, because one phase of a person's life is passing, a new phase is coming up. We, of course, give them for funerals because a life has passed and going to another life. Birthdays, 1 year is passing into the next. So for us, my grandmother, my tutu made challah leis, my mother, myself, my sister, I taught halal, so that when you want to give a lei like this, and if you get one like this, it's like, whoa, whoa, yay, because somebody took a really long time to make that for you. So, kaua pehihala o Hāmākua, the rain of Hāmākua that pelts the pandanus fruit. So we're figuring baga raining hard. Kamakani ha palalepo o Pāia, the dust-smearing wind of Pāia, refers to the wind of Pāia Maui. So ha pala is like, you know, like when it gets into everything, you know, when something gets into everything, like when the dust is just everywhere, that's the hapalalepo. Yeah, it just is into everything. What this tells me is that it was probably a dry place anyway. Yeah, it was probably a dry place, because if it talks about wind and dirt, then there was lots of dirt to have it blow around. So to me, that means that it probably at certain times of the year was very dry, and probably open fields like this. We know that Pāia, even, well, I guess still today, was a fishing place. The families of Pāia were ocean, were either fish or shoreline gathering. The women, ku'au, all the way down there, you know, the women would do shoreline gathering stuff, limu papa'i, stuff that you can gather on shore, and then fishing outside. There's a couple of outside reefs that when you fly over, if you look, you can see the white water. So it was people used to, I guess they still do, dive in that area, and it was a fishing space as well. I go back over here. Pāia had a mill. I mean, the mill is still there, but it's not in service. But Pāia had a sugar mill, and it was very important for the bringing in of water for sugar production. So it had a sugar mill, and there was a sugar train tracks that ran through Pāia, and what it really was is the train actually in its entirety ran from Kuiaha into Kahului all the way up to Wailuku. So when it first started, the Kahului and Wailuku, that's the Chuku Chuku train song that Palani Vaughn wrote. It's about Kalakaua signing the documents to make the train from Kahului, well, from Wailuku to Kahului, to bring the milled sugar from Wailuku sugar mill down to the harbor and then ship it out. And then they started going out more towards the north side in segments. Pāia was up to Pāia was the next segment, and then out to Kuiaha was the segment after that. And so they used to bring the sugar all the way from Kuiaha into the harbor, and then from Wailuku into the harbor. And so that train, the Kahului Railroad, ran along that extension, and the Pāia extension was opened in 1880. And then in 1913, it was extended across Maliko Gulch to Ha'iku and Kuiaha. It was finally decommissioned in 1966. So in very recent time, 1966 is when it was decommissioned. And my auntie's father-in-law was an engineer on the Kahului Railroad. And when it was, we can still see parts of that railroad, yeah? Do we know where you can see parts of the railroad? Huh? By the piers. By the piers. Also between Sipmi and the bank. Right in that intersection. there is, if you look on the grass, you'll see parts of that still till today. So there are families today whose families worked for the railroad all the way up to 1966. So, well, you know, for some people that's still Wakahiko. For some people that's still Wakahiko. For me, it's, oh, no, I graduated from high school in 1969, so, you know, I was still good in 1966. So this is, some of the trains are what are used by the Lahaina Railroad little thing. They came from here, from the Kahului Railroad. The Hobron lane that's over there, we have a Hobron here. There's a Hobron also in Honolulu. Same guy that had to do with shipping. Kahului Railroad then changed into Kahului Trucking, yeah, which still runs today. Kahului Trucking. So out of the moving of things by train, it then turned into moving things by truck. Hali'imaile. Stories tell us that Kahekili Nui Ahumanu was born in Hali'imaile. Yeah, I mean, for me, because he's my guy, Kahekili to me was, you know, the greatest ali'i of his time, was born in Hali'imaile. And so that's why I talk about that we don't think of those places as being overly important today, but it had importance in the past. So Kahekili Nui Ahumanu was born in Hali'imaile. Now, for those of you who may or may not know about Kahekili, again, as I say, he's my guy. He was probably of his time the greatest ali'i of his time, because under his rulership or by family connection, he had Maui, Moloka'i, Lanai, Oahu, and Kauai. He had everybody. He just did not have Hawaii Island. So through conquest, he had Maui, Moloka'i, Lanai, and Oahu. Through conquest. And then through family ties, Kaeokulani, his brother, was the ali'i of Kauai. So through family ties, he also had Kauai. So he was he made this area, Kahului Wailuku, his center of government. It's where he had his center of government. One of his, we talked about this a little bit when we talked about Wailuku. He was up there in Wailuku, and his 3 heiau was in the Wailuku area. He was very religious, and he often separated himself from his wives and from his community in order to do the worship that he needed to do. He was tattooed so closely on the right side of his body so that he looked like he was completely black. And this was to follow his god, who was Kanehekili, who also is seen as being half black and half with the natural skin color. So Kahekili was the same way. He tattooed himself so closely over the course of his life to look, the one side, the right side of his body is completely black, and the left side, the side natural color. He also had a group of hand-picked warriors that were his last line. Yeah, before him, they were called the Pahupu, and they too were tattooed the same way. Right side of their body tattooed black, the other side natural color. When they went into war, they would turn their eyelids inside out, hold it up with bamboo sticks, and go to war. They go to die, or they go to live. There was no in between for them. So Kahekili was said to have been born in Hali'imaile. Everybody repeat after me, Hali'imaile. Hali'imaile. The big green and white sign when you drive up towards Pukalani on the right-hand side of the road says that on it. Says Hali'i Maile. Does not say Haile Maile. Does not say Haile Maile. It says Hali'i Maile. And the term the name may mean to have so much maile that it blankets the area. Hali'i is what you throw down or cover or blanket something. You know, like when you make imu, you have hali'i for your imu. If you come from a Hawaiian household, you will often hear, get the hali'i for the baby. Or you're going to get the blanket or something to spread out so that you can put the baby on top. Hali'i, something that blankets. And so, hali'i maile, so much maile that it blanketed the area. Do we see maile there today? No. Pineapple also had sugarcane, but this name tells us had maile. So we're going to say what? Hali'i maile. Okay, cool. I put this up here. It was written by Dave, and we're going to listen to it. It was written by Dennis Kamakahi, and you can read it here, but I'll read it for you as well. He says, this song is written for my great-great-great-grandmother, Kupanihi, who descended from the great chief Maweke of Tahiti and from the chiefs mentioned in this song. My Hawaiian name, Kahekili Mamaui Kalanikeha, is derived from my ancestor, Kahekili Nuiahumanu, the great chief of Maui. And Lanikeha was the name of Kahekili's compound. Kahekili's place, his house, his compound was named Lanikeha, which means the heavenly extreme highness. Okay, so why I brought this up is he puts in this song, and it behooves us from Maui to understand or maybe even learn this song. He puts in this song the names of the high chiefs of this place in the order of their existence. Now, there are lots of other chiefs in between here, but this is the one that these are the ones that he puts. We're trying to make sound. Hang on. I can start them again once you get them going. Here's the plus. You have to talk to the lady. Okay, wait. Let me move them back. Okay, we ready? Oh, hello. This guy got to be loud. Now come the ali'i names. These guys, we get them. Okay, so if we memorize this song, just the hui alone, you will be able to know the names of the high ali'i of Maui. And this Kamehameha Nui o Pakaikai, that's not Kamehameha the first. That's different. Kamehameha Nui o Pakaikai was actually raised on Molokai and then became ali'i before Kahekili. So he was Kahekili's older brother. And then Kalani Kupule was Kahekili's son. He's the guy that lost Maui and Oahu. So when Kamehameha came through and was able to take those two islands, it encompassed most of the rest. Okay, most of you may not have heard that what I was saying is I'm going to have quite a few mele in this because I talked about how these places end up in mele and what these mele tell us about the places themselves. So I'm going to bring quite a few mele to this. And this is a mele ma'i. Yay! This is a mele ma'i. And for those who may not be familiar, a mele ma'i is a mele poetry that is written to highlight the sexual prowess and maybe accomplishments of most of the time an ali'i, because it was necessary for the ali'i to have children so that the ali'i line can be continued. So these mele ma'i were created to bring attention and liveliness to the ma'i, so that more children will be created. And they did not leave that to chance. There were also teachers of the young ali'i to ensure that they knew what to do when the time happened. And so there would be teachers for these ali'i to know about what to do, but also in order for ali'i children to be born. So this particular one is called Kaua'i Liliko'i. And you see that little red dot that you can't see on the teeny tiny little map. But just know, Bambai, when you go back and you look at it on your Facebook page, just know that it is, Liliko'i is at the head, at the top of Maliko Gulch. So that's where and you know how you know that? There is Liliko'i Road. Liliko'i Road is in Liliko'i. Yay! They did something right that time. So it's at the head, Liliko'i is at the head of of Maliko Gulch. So this mele is very much like, and so I did this talk about mele mai in Honolulu a couple weeks ago, and so now Kahulu wants me to do it here, so I can't give everything now. But I can, and you can come again. But there is a group of mele mai that are like this, which is meant to be encouraging. Meant to be encouraging. And so if you look almost towards the end, the third to the bottom, up from the bottom line where it says amamaue, continue, persist. I like to describe that as like, go baby go. That's the part that it goes in over here. So, you know, when I first started learning about this, I was like, they can write about that kind of stuff. And then when you look at Hawaiian mele, they write about them all the time. All the time. Beautiful mele. And you think, oh, how lovely. And it's like anapau. Hea kahana anapau la. Anapau was the name of Lili'u's ma'i. And it talks about horseback riding, bouncing up and down. It doesn't take much to get the picture. That's the go baby go kind. Yeah, so this one, Kaua Ililikoi, is that same kind of mele. So we're just going to look at the, I mean, I can do the chant for you, but we're just going to look at the English words. And not every time, but often in mele, if it talks about rain or waterfalls, it's about lovemaking. Does not take much. When they talk about that your skin is wet with and slippery with rain, maybe not rain. So not every time, not, you know, Kawailele o Nu'uanu, that mele is about the waterfalls of Nu'uanu. It's not about no lovemaking. Maybe. But sometimes when there's rain, water, slippery, if it seems to come through on the rest of the mele, it might be a mele ho'ipo'ipo, a lovemaking song, or a mele ma'i. Mele ma'i are almost always for ali'i. Mele ho'ipo'ipo can be for you and me, common people, we good. Yeah, but like the mele ka'opihio kanapo that Keli'i made, that's a mele ho'ipo'ipo. It's about, you know, the fishermen looking for the big opihi that is stuck on the wall. So it's a mele ho'ipo'ipo. This is a mele ma'i. And it says the rains of Lilikoi at Lilikoi falls, so steep and high to spatter out below, so steep and high to spatter out below. There you are, pierced by the needle. Oh, alas, where is it? Here it is. Where is it? Here it is. Here it is, whether you hear me or not. There you go, denying its existence. Continue, persist. Yes, you're ma'i. The heart is in pain. Yeah? Doesn't take much to see, well, for adults, for adults, doesn't take much to see how this is equated to lovemaking if you think about metaphors, yeah? When you think about metaphors. Okay, there is another companion chant to this that is called Hāmākua, Kaua'i Hāmākua. Now, Hawaii Island, okay, here again I get in trouble with the rest of the Hawaiian archipelago. Hawaii Island, thinks it's for Hāmākua, Hawaii. We don't on Maui. It's our Hāmākua, because this is its companion chant. It's almost exactly like this. The Hāmākua chant, Kauai Hāmākua, is almost exactly like this. So we know that it's companion chants. So Hawaii Island, because it's for Kamehameha, Hawaii Island feels it's for Hawaii. Yeah, because it's a heinoa for Kamehameha. But he had some stuff going on Maui. Yeah, 3 of his wives came from Maui. So, that's the world according to Hoku in the confines of this room. So this particular mele ma'i takes place in Lilikoi, which is in this Hāmākuapoko district. Makawao. I'm going to do a little historical thing, and then I'm going to tell you why I put this Mauna Olu Seminary up here. Mauna Olu Seminary began as Makawao Family School in 1861 by Reverend Andrews and his wife, and was originally above Makawao. The land was known as Maluhia, and not so much, so the school was not so much about book knowledge, although that was an important part of what they did. It was also about, and it was a female seminary. It was for girls. It was a female seminary. So it was also about instilling in Hawaiian children all of those attributes and characteristics that the missionaries felt were important for Hawaiian women to know. This had to do also with how to cook, clean house, sew, take care of children, keep a household, etc. It did include reading, writing, arithmetic, literature, history, geography, English, and the Bible. They also learned sewing, cooking, and cleaning. So there was a fire in 1869 that burned down the school, and it was not rebuilt until 1871, again above Makawao. In 1900, it was moved closer to Paia, kind of like where we familiar with it on Baldwin Avenue. That happened in 1900, and it existed as a school until 1942. So like I said, and this goes why I put this up, one fire closed the school in 1869, and then it reopened in 1871. In 1898, there was a second fire, and then it was closed and moved further down. And the reason I bring that up is because my grandmother, my tutu, went to this school. She was born in 1887, and she went to this school when she was 4, and her sister was 6. Can you imagine a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old? The 2 sisters went, partially because they became wards of the state because her mother died. Her mother died, and they were the 2 youngest of 9. So she lived there almost 100% of her time until she was about 11, when the school burned again. She swears she didn't do it. That was her story. She used to tell us. You know, I was left because they went, and when we come up to the next one, I'll tell you why. The school, the students, went to Kalena, and we'll talk about that, went to Kalena to have a day in the pond and the river up there in Kalena, and she was bad because that's where we come from. And so she was left back, and she couldn't go with them. And she said, I did not burn the school. I go, I'm good, Tutu, I'm good. But she went to this school from about 4 years old until she was about 11. She tells us stories of, and although they were taught English, they couldn't speak English, Hawaiian in the classroom. They still spoke Hawaiian among themselves, the girls. Yeah, when they were alone and among themselves, they still spoke Hawaiian. And so she said that she never knew her father during that time of her life because because he never came. But there was, and she would tell us this story, and so we always wondered who this was. She said there was a man that used to come in a big black car and would take them, her and her sister, to go shopping. And they would go and they would buy socks and clothes and things. He would buy them things to eat and then take them back to the school. So he was like their sponsor, yeah? And he would pay for whatever was needed for her and her sister. She didn't know who he was, and she never found out who he was. But when the school burned, that she swears she didn't do, when the school burned, they all had to leave, yeah, because the school burned down, so they all had to leave the school. And her father came to get her, and she wouldn't go with him because she didn't recognize him. But she did, and so they came and they lived in Nehe, down at the mouth of the Wailuku River, is where they lived. And I'm going to tell this story, and many of you may have heard it already. So she came down, she went to public school. Yeah, she came out of the seminary, came downtown, lived with her dad and her other siblings, and her father was remarried to her auntie, was now her stepmother. And so she went to public school at about 10 or 11 years old. And she told this story more than once to us. And she said, you know, in those days you had to memorize everything. They didn't have paper and pencil, you had to memorize everything. So one day, they had to memorize, and you're supposed to stand in front of the class, and you're supposed to say what you memorized. And she couldn't remember. And so the kids started laughing at her, you know, and teasing her. And so she got mad, because that's how we are. So she got mad. And she started scolding them back in Hawaiian, because that's her first language, yeah? So she started. The teacher reached behind his desk, got a buggy whip, and whipped her down the back of her dress. She said it broke all the buttons down the back of her dress, because they had all those tiny little buttons. She went to the bathroom, she turned the dress around, she held it in the front, and she walked home, and she never went back to school again. She was the baby brat, so she told her dad she didn't want to go back to school because the teacher was mean, and he said, okay. So she stayed home. But that is the reason why I worked for Hawaiian Immersion. I never wanted another child to be punished for speaking the language of this land. So that's why we did Hawaiian Immersion, because my tutu told that story more than once. So it was ingrained, you know, in me, and that's why we did what we did. But she went to this Mauna Olu seminary when she was little, 4 years old until she was about 10 or 11. So it did some good, but, you know, did plenty good because now we have Hawaiian language immersion on our island. Uh-oh, something happened. Does yours show up? Okay, something happened. Let me see. There it is. We're going to do this one. We're good. So we're moving up the hill. We're moving up the hill to Pi'iholo. And as we know, our friend Keli'i lives up in the kuahibis of Pi'iholo. And this is a mele that he wrote. And if you read what he writes about it, it talks about his affection for his kane, Kawai Punahele, and he also gave him this name, Kawai o Kalena. So this is the waters, because the other picture was Kalena Pond, was the waters of the pictures of the place called Kalena, that in other stories and places, they talk about Kalena. The ali'i would go to Kalena and spend time in Kalena among the ohia and the koa in those upper regions. So we're going to hope that this still is a goal. So if you look at the English, you'll get an idea of what it's like up there. So I know it's windy.
Pi'iholo no auei, avelela ulima o kamakani, hani ko ike ke kalarue, aku ko ike ke kaulalena, no kawai o kalena te alohae, vale ai zamangulu kukui, uili maka uai te hoae, ikaua ukiu o kanahele, hele lua tuli ai tantue, hoe mua hoe pono i te alaloa, a heloa ka pilina ku paae, pili paaku ia e te aloha, a ina ia mai tapu anae, no ka i o kalena la hei noa. Hey no kawai o kalena.
Okay, I want us to take a look at this poetry a little bit. What is important about this kind of poetry is that it brings out a lot of place names. And that's very important because then it sets, or a lot of names, because then it sets place. It does not set time, other than if you know who Kawai o Kalena is, then you know it's the lifetime of that person. But other than that, it doesn't really set a time, but it does set place. So if you look, Pi'iholo, we just talked about, is up there in the boonies. And as you go down 1, 2, 3, 4, line 4 at the end, Ulalena. Ulalena is the very famous rain that is in that area. And really, you can see it when you're up there in it sometimes. But when you really see it is if you're down here. If you're down here, 4 o'clock-ish, 5 o'clock-ish, when the sun is going into Iao Valley, you see it best in the spring and summer. When it's going into Iao Valley in that particular angle. and there is misty rain on the flanks of Haleakala, you'll see the ulalena in the clouds and in the rainfall. And it is predominantly red and yellow. No blues in there as well. So then when you move on down, the next line talks about Kalena, which is that pond that was often visited. And then you go down about halfway, it talks about the Ukiu. The Ukiu, Kiu, Ukiu are all the same. They're all the same rain and wind. They both have the same name. It's all the same. So if you see Ukiu, Ukiu, Kiu, it's all the same one. He does a really nice thing in Hawaiian poetry that in English poetry it's called linked assonance. In Hawaiian poetry it's huikani. It's when the end of one line sounds like the beginning of the next line. So about halfway in that ukiu line where it says ika ua ukiu okana hele, hele lua. Yeah, the hele and the hele lua is huikani. Loa, the next line, hoi mua, hoi pono ike ala loa, ahe loa, kapilina kupa'ae. So these are Hawaiian poetic devices that are used in poetry that shows you the skill of the composer, because they're able to do that kind of linking and it all makes sense. Yeah, and it all makes sense. Okay. Now this, hold on. The ukiu or the kiu is kama'aina to makawao. Yeah, if you ever lived in the area or been in the area, it's the usual. It's a kama'aina wind and rain for the area, and it actually comes across from, you know, like the Haiku area and comes across into Makawao, across the face of Haleakala. It's cold and it's sharp and biting sometimes. You know, if you live up there, you know that rain or you know that wind. That's what I call the lockjaw. You know, when it's so cold, it's like that. Okay. So what you see here is an occasion that is not often seen. And that's why it's kind of fuzzy, because I was in the car and it was happening and I'm sticking my phone out the window so I can get the picture. The cloud bank on the left is the ukiu and the cloud bank on the right is the naulu. And there is a very well-known story about the battle that is done between the ukiu and the naulu on the face of Haleakala. And they come from two opposing sides, yeah, of Haleakala, the two separate flanks. If you see, the naulu is puffy clouds and the ukiu are much more flat, yeah? And so the story is, when this happens, the two cloud banks are doing battle. And depending on where they meet, that is the one that has won. So if you look at this, it's actually meeting on the Makawao side of Haleakala. So that says Naulu won that day, because it was able to push all the way from the Ulupalakua flank all the way across and push the ukiu, because you see how that little circular thing is happening? That's the heat, the cloud mass that is pushing into the ukiu. So at this particular day, the Naulu won the battle. Sometimes it's the other way around. Sometimes it's a little bit more towards the Ulupalakua side, and then the ukiu has won the battle. So our kupuna saw this occurring Yeah, and so they create this story for us to remember that this does happen. This does happen. The colder ukiu, which comes from Makawao, and the warmer naulu that comes from Ulupalakua, and how they meet and they do battle in the middle. So if you're ever driving up country and you see the pull over, take a picture, because you don't often see it like that with the flat ukiu and the puffy naulu, in order to show you the climactic conditions of that place and time. So we have finished. You know, at first I thought, Hāmākuapoko, that's such a little place, you know, but we had a lot to say about this little place. So we have 2 more days, 2 more class times, and then just in time for us to be ready for family time again. So if you have any questions or comments, please fill them in on the Facebook page. Those of you out there, if you have questions or you'd like to make comments, love it, not a problem. Anybody have questions in here? Inapela, paukapapa, mahalo.